I didn't know it then, but the moment she slid that envelope across my kitchen table, that was the beginning of the betrayal that would rip our family apart. It was a quiet Thursday morning, 9:12 a.m. Overcast skies, that kind of gray light that makes everything feel heavier than it should. My cousin Mara stood in front of me, arms crossed, trying to look casual. She wasn't. Her knee bounced, her eyes darted, and she kept smoothing the wrinkles on her cheap blazer, like she wanted to erase the guilt hiding underneath it. "Just open it," she said. Too quickly, too rehearsed. I remember the way the edges of the envelope felt. Rough, almost brittle. Not like something official. More like something rushed. Forced. Wrong. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No letteridad. No explanation. Just a number. $50,000. And under it a line, in exchange for full release of all claims to the Crowley estate. I laughed. Actually laughed. Is this a joke? Mara didn't laugh. It's real. And it's more than fair. Fair. For the land my grandmother spent 40 years paying off. For the property our family had been fighting over since before I was born. For the inheritance I knew, was worth more than $500,000, even on a bad day. But I didn't know the real number yet. Not the one that would blow everything open. $50,000, I repeated jaw tight. Why now? She shrugged. It's just easier. You sign, you get paid. No lawyers. No drama. No drama. She always said things like that, right before creating the biggest drama imaginable. I should have walked away right then. I should have thrown the paper back in her face. But instead, I stared at it. This pathetic offer that suddenly made my hands go cold. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. And Mara knew I felt it. That inheritance doesn't matter to you, she added softly. You said that after the funeral. And you said you'd never go behind my back. I shot back. Her smile flickered. People change. That line, God, I'd hear it again in ways that would haunt me. I didn't sign. I told her I needed time. She left in a hurry. Too much of a hurry. When the door shut, my house felt colder, like she'd taken the air with her. I stared at the paper for a long time. The number, the rushed ink, the sense that someone, not Mara, was forcing this. At 9:47 a.m., I made a decision that would alter everything that came after. I grabbed my keys and drove to the old estate office, the one my grandmother used for decades. Dusty, forgotten, full of things no one had touched since the day she died. The hallway lights flickered as I walked in. The smell of old paper and lemon cleaner hit me like a memory. My heart hammered. I wasn't supposed to be there. The estate lawyer was supposed to meet us next week for an official valuation. But something inside me screamed that waiting was a trap. I found my grandmother's filing cabinet in the corner. Drawer stuck. Rusted. I yanked it open anyway. And there they were. The real estate documents. Appraisal records. Investment papers. Maps of mineral deposits I didn't know existed on our family land. Projected value. $4.2 million. My breath caught in my throat. $4 million. And she wanted me to sign it away for $50,000. My stomach turned. I felt sick. Then I felt angry, hot, violent anger that burned up my chest. This wasn't Mara's plan. She wasn't smart enough, bold enough. Someone else was pulling strings. And the worst part? The papers I found weren't supposed to be there. These were the confidential valuations that only the estate executor should have had access to. Someone had broken in, taken what they needed, hidden a rest. Someone who knew exactly what the land was worth. Someone who wanted me gone. My hand shook as I grabbed the appraisal and took photos, date stamped, clear, undeniable. As I snapped the last picture, I heard it. A creak. Floorboard behind me. I turned. Nobody was there. But the air felt different. Watched. Observed. The silence in that room wasn't normal. Too thick, too heavy. I backed out slowly, heart pounding as each step echoed through the hallway. When I reached my car, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text. Do not go back there. No puntuación. No signature. Just a warning. My blood ran cold. Who knew where I was? Who was watching? And why did they care? That night, I confronted Mara. She denied everything at first, pretended I imagined it, pretended I was paranoid, until I told her the number. For Mara. Her face drained of color so fast it scared me. You weren't supposed to know, she whispered. Who else is involved? I demanded. Her lip trembled. She looked at the door, then at her phone, then at me. I can't say, she breathed. He'll find out. He. Her eyes filled with tears. You don't understand, she said, voice cracking. I didn't have a choice. None of us did. None of us. That was the moment my pulse spiked so hard I thought I might faint. None of us. Meaning this wasn't about her losing control. It was about someone else taking it. And then she said the one sentence I'll never forget. If you keep digging, you'll get hurt. Just take the money. Please. A heavy silence dropped between us. Her. Afraid. Me. Betrayed. The truth, still buried under whatever threat she wasn't willing to name. I stood to leave. Then she grabbed my arm. Promise me, she whispered. Promise you won't open the safe in the estate office. My heart stopped. The safe. The same one my grandmother told only me the combination to. The same one even Mara didn't know existed. How do you know about the safe? I asked quietly. She froze. That was my answer. She wasn't acting alone. She wasn't even close. And if they knew about the safe, then they knew what was inside it, which meant they were planning something much bigger than a forged offer. I walked out without another word. But before I close out this part of the story, I want to say something because some of you will understand this better than anyone. If you've ever had family twist your trust into something dangerous, something that makes you doubt your own blood, you know this feeling. And if you're here right now, I see you. Drop a broken heart. I didn't sleep that night, and by sunrise, I made a decision I knew would change everything. I was going to open that safe. I didn't care who was involved. I didn't care what they were hiding. I didn't care who tried to stop me. But what I found inside that safe the next morning, it wasn't money. It wasn't deeds. It wasn't documents. It was something far worse. Something that made me realize this wasn't about the inheritance at all. It was about my grandmother's death and the secret she died protecting. I didn't plan on going back to the estate office that early. But by 6:38 a.m., I was standing in front of the old building again, keys trembling in my hand, feeling a pressure in my chest like someone was squeezing my ribs from the inside out. The sunrise hadn't fully formed yet. Just a pale strip of pink smeared across the sky, barely enough light to see the door. Maybe that was a blessing. Everything about that morning felt like something I shouldn't be seeing anyway. I unlocked the door. The hinges groaned, long and low, like they were warning me. Inside, the air was colder than yesterday. Still, too still. It made the hair on my arms lift as I walked through the hallway. I don't know what I expected. Footsteps, voices, someone waiting. But there was only silence. And the safe. It sat exactly where my grandmother had always kept it, tucked into the built-in shelving behind a stack of fake file boxes. An old steel thing, heavy and stubborn, with chipped paint and a dial that always stuck around the number 30. I knelt down. My heartbeat hammered so loudly I could feel it in my ears. I whispered her combination out loud, almost like saying her name. 27, 11, 9, 3. Click. The lock released with a sound that snapped through the room like a gunshot. For a moment, I froze. I don't know why. Maybe because it felt like crossing a line no one could uncross. Maybe because I could feel that whatever was behind that door wasn't going to make anything easier. I opened it, and my entire world shifted. There was no cash, no gold, no property deeds, just a single manila folder. A thick one, overstuffed, edges curled. The tab read only one word, handwritten in my grandmother's shaky script. Mara. My hands went numb. I pulled the folder out, sat on the floor, and opened it. The first page wasn't paper. It was a photograph. Mara, 12 years old, holding a baby. That baby was me. Behind her stood a woman I didn't recognize, jaw bruised, eyes swollen, one arm braced in a sling. She looked terrified, like someone had caught her in the middle of running for her life. I turned the photo over. A date. A signature. A line written in a rushed, uneven hand. Do not let him find her. My stomach twisted so violently I had to swallow hard just to breathe. I pulled out the next document, an emergency custody note, and signed, undated, never filed. But the name written in block letters at the top made everything inside me freeze. Mara Ellis Crowley, temporary guardianship. Temporary. So Mara wasn't just my cousin. She had been something else. Someone else. I'd never known. The pages blurred for a second as my eyes filled. I wiped them and kept going, flipping through document after document, each one worse than the last. Police reports, hospital notes, statements, names blacked out, dates missing, but the story hid between the lines. Someone had hurt my mother, someone dangerous, someone powerful enough that my grandmother had locked evidence away instead of trusting the system. Someone who didn't want me alive. And somehow, Mara had been connected to all of it. My throat tightened because suddenly the $50,000 offer wasn't some greedy scheme. It was a cover, a distraction, a way to keep me away from something bigger than money. Someone didn't want me opening this safe. And someone definitely didn't want me seeing this folder. The last document slipped loose from the stack and fell onto my lap. It was a notarized letter. My grandmother's handwriting. Shaky, old, but unmistakable, to be read only by my granddaughter upon my passing. My breath caught in my chest. I unfolded it with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. If you're reading this, it means they came back. Not if something happens. Not if the estate gets complicated. No, if they came back. Every nerve in my body went cold. I kept reading. I tried to protect Mara. I tried to protect you. But there are things about our family that were buried long before I ever had the strength to speak of them. If you want the truth, you must decide whether you can live with it. At the bottom, one final line. Your mother did not leave you. She was taken. My vision tunneled. My hands trembled so violently the letter nearly slipped. Taken. Taken. The word wouldn't stop echoing. I heard the first sob before I realized it came from me. A sound ripped out from somewhere deep, somewhere I didn't even know existed. I pressed a hand over my mouth to keep from crying out, because it wasn't just grief. It was terror and recognition. That text I received yesterday, do not go back there, it wasn't a threat. It was a warning. Someone knew I was getting too close. Someone knew this folder existed. Someone wanted the past to stay buried. I don't know how long I sat there. 5 minutes. 10. Maybe longer. The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were inching closer with every breath. When I finally stood, my legs shook so badly I had to brace myself against the shelving. I placed the folder back inside the safe. Not because I wanted to, but because suddenly every instinct screamed that taking it with me would be a death sentence. I snapped a few pictures fast, my hands shaking, breath too sharp. They were blurry, but they were proof. I slid the safe shut and spun the dial. And that was when I heard something that made my blood run cold. A door closing. Soft. Somewhere in the building. I froze. Someone was here. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to control my breathing. My heartbeat pounded so loudly I was sure whoever it was could hear it. The footsteps were slow, measured, coming from the hallway outside the office. I slipped my phone into my pocket, grabbed the nearest object, a metal ruler, and edged toward the opposite door. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a voice. You shouldn't have opened it. I didn't recognize the voice. Deep. Calm. Too calm. I didn't answer. I ran. Bolted through the side hallway, down the narrow corridor, out the rusted emergency exit that slammed shut behind me so hard the frame rattled. Cold air hit me like a slap. I didn't look back. Not once. I sprinted to my car, hands fumbling so badly I dropped my keys twice before I finally got the door open. The engine roared to life, and I peeled out of the lot, gravel spitting behind me. I didn't slow down until it was 5 miles away. Even then, I kept checking the rearview mirror. Nothing. No cars trailing. No shadows following. But I didn't feel safe. Not even close. I parked in an empty grocery store lot, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. And that's when it hit me. Mara wasn't trying to steal the inheritance. She was trying to survive. Someone had forced her into this. Someone with enough power to hide hospital reports, bury police files, track me, and still show up at the estate office before dawn. Someone who'd been waiting for my grandmother to die, so they could finish what they started. For a moment, I let myself collapse forward, forehead against the wheel, breath shaking. Then my phone buzzed. A message. No name. No number. Just words. If you talk to Mara again, she won't live to see next week. I stared at the screen, pulse thundering. They weren't threatening me. They were threatening her. And despite everything, despite the lies, the offer, the secrecy, Mara was the only blood family I had left. Something in my chest hardened. A line drew itself in my mind. A quiet, dangerous clarity settled in. They thought threatening her would shut me up. They had no idea what they just started. But before I made my next move, before I tell you what I did next, I need to ask you something. Because some of you know this exact fear. When you start to uncover the truth, and the truth starts looking back at you. If you've ever had your entire family history flipped upside down by one secret, tell me I'm not the only one. Drop a comment. I read all of them. By noon, I'd made a decision. I was going to confront Mara again. Not to accuse her. To save her. But what happened when I reached her apartment 3 hours later? I still replay that moment every night. Because when I opened her door, I found her sitting on the floor, shaking, clutching something in her hands. A burned document. Edges blackened. Ink smeared. Ash drifting to the carpet. She looked up at me with wide, terrified eyes. They know, she whispered. They know you opened the safe. And they know what you saw. I stepped toward her. What did you burn? She held it out with a trembling hand. It was the page with your father's name on it. They told me to get rid of it. They told me if I didn't. Her voice cracked. They said they'd finish what they started 26 years ago. My father. The man I never knew. The man no one ever talked about. The man whose name I had never once seen written anywhere. Until now. One burned page. One missing name. And one truth I could no longer escape. This wasn't just about inheritance. This was about blood, and someone wanted ours wiped out. Everything inside me went cold, because the next words out of Mara's mouth changed everything I thought I knew. She whispered, "He's alive, and he's coming for you." I didn't speak for a full 5 seconds after Mara whispered those words. He's alive, and he's coming for you. Alive. The word didn't fit. It felt sharp, wrong, like it was scraping the inside of my ribs, just existing in the air. I had lived my entire life believing the opposite. I didn't even have a picture of him. Just blank space where a father should have been. And now she was telling me he wasn't just real. He was looking for me. I crouched down in front of her, trying to steady my breath. What do you mean he's alive? Who told you that? Who are you talking about? She just kept shaking her head, pressing her burnt fingertips against her temples. I shouldn't have said anything. They'll know. They always know. Mara. Look at me. When she finally did, I saw it, the fear. Not nervousness. Not guilt. Pure, bone-deep fear. The kind of fear that doesn't fade when the danger leaves. The kind that stays forever. They said he's out, she whispered. That's all they said. He's out. Take care of the papers. I burned the page. I swear I did. But it didn't matter. They said you already saw too much. I felt my stomach clench. Out? You mean prison? Her silence was the answer. I staggered backward until I hit the wall. I pressed my hand against it because my legs weren't steady anymore. My father had been in prison. For what? For my mother? For me? The questions hit me so fast they blurred together. I forced myself to breathe, slow and deep, because panic would get me nowhere. Who were you talking to? I asked. Who told you he's out? Mara lifted her eyes. They were red, glossy, terrified. I don't know their names. I've never seen them. They call. They instruct. And if you ask questions, they tell you something awful to remind you why you don't want answers. My stomach twisted. What do they tell you? She closed her eyes. They said if you found the folder, you'd remember. But you weren't supposed to remember. I felt the breath punch out of my chest. Remember what? She didn't answer. Because that was the moment someone banged on her door. Not a soft knock. Not a neighbor. A heavy, deliberate, 3-hit knock that made the frame shake. Mara went white. No, she whispered. Not now. Not here. I leaned close. Who is that? She didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Just mouthed one word. Run. But I didn't run. I grabbed her hand and yanked her toward the back exit. She resisted for half a second, long enough for me to feel how much terror lived in her bones, then followed. Another knock. Harder. A man's voice, low and calm, seeped through the door. Mara, open up. It's time. Time for what? I didn't want to find out. We slipped out the back just as the front door began to crack, with splintering under force. I practically dragged her down the fire escape, metal echoing beneath us, every sound too loud, too exposed. By the time we reached my car, she was sobbing, breath sharp and broken. They'll kill me, she whispered. I know they will. Not if we leave. Not if we get answers first. Because running blind was useless. We needed facts. We needed history. We needed someone who wasn't afraid to say names out loud. There was only one person who fit that description. The estate lawyer. The one who was supposed to handle the valuation. The one my grandmother trusted for 30 years. The one who, for reasons I didn't understand yet, never showed up yesterday. I drove fast, but careful, checking every mirror, every car behind us, every shadow that moved too close. When we reached his office, the parking lot was empty. Too empty. I squeezed the steering wheel. You stay in the car, I told Mara. No, she whispered. I'm not staying alone. Not with them looking. I didn't argue. She followed me inside. The office lights were off, except for one lamp flickering at the end of the hallway. We walked toward it, every step a warning. The lawyer, Mr. Harland, sat at his desk. Back straight, hands folded, eyes locked on us the moment we appeared. I've been expecting you, he said. His voice wasn't surprised. It wasn't confused. It was resigned. I stepped forward. You missed our appointment. No, it was canceled. By who? He didn't answer. Instead, he motioned to the two chairs in front of him. Seat. I didn't want to, but something in his tone, something tired, broken, told me he wasn't the threat here. We sat. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. I always knew this day would come. Your grandmother warned me you might find that safe. She just didn't expect it would happen this soon. My pulse spiked. You know about the safe? I know everything about that safe. He opened a drawer and pulled out a second envelope. Thick, heavy, sealed with red wax. This was meant for you. Not until the final court signing. But considering the circumstances, I took it with shaking hands. What's inside? Answers, he said quietly. But answers come with consequences. My throat went dry. What consequences? He didn't blink. For knowing who your father really is. The room tilted for a moment. My palms broke into a sweat. You know him? I whispered. I knew him. I handled the case. Case. The words sliced into me. What case? Harland rubbed a hand over his face, the weight of 30 years' secrets dragging at his features. You were an infant, he said softly. Your mother brought you to me. She was terrified. She begged me to help her hide you, to change names, to create new documents. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. From who? He looked at me with a grief so deep it chilled me. From your father. I couldn't breathe. Why? Why would she hide me from him? He opened another file. Thick, old, stamped with a seal I didn't recognize. He slid a single paper toward me. A charge sheet. My father's name at the top. And the words beneath it made my stomach twist into a knot. Attempted murder. Domestic assault. Child endangerment. My vision blurred. The room swayed. Harlan kept talking, voice low. He didn't want custody. He didn't want divorce. He wanted control. And when your mother tried to leave, he paused, swallowed. She almost died. You were found in her arms, barely breathing. My hands trembled so violently, I had to grip the chair. I don't remember, I whispered. Your grandmother didn't want you to, he said gently. I stared at the charge sheet, at the ink, at the name that felt like someone else's nightmare. He wasn't supposed to get out, Harlan added. Not after what he did. The sentence was long, very long. So long your grandmother believed he'd die behind bars. Mara made a strangled sound beside me. Then how? I croaked, "Is he out now?" Harlan's jaw tightened. "Because someone intervened." I looked up sharply. "Ooh," but he didn't answer. He reached into the drawer again, pulling out a thin plastic bag. Inside it was a postage-stamped envelope. My grandmother's handwriting on the front. Addressed to Harlan. Mailed 5 days before her death. He slid it toward me. "She knew something was happening," he said. "Knew someone was pulling strings. She mailed this to me, with instructions to open it only if the prison contacted us about an early release." My pulse hammered. "And did they?" Harlan nodded once. "Yesterday morning, the day Mara offered me the $50,000. I felt cold all over." "Open it," Harlan said quietly. I broke the seal with shaking hands. Inside, only 3 lines of handwriting. "If he is being released, it is not for justice. It is for revenge. Take care of my granddaughter." I felt my breath falter, a hollow ache blooming in my chest. Revenge? For what? For being hidden? For being protected? For surviving? I looked up at Harlan. "What does he want?" Harlan didn't hesitate. "He wants you to sign away the land." "Why?" He exhaled. "Because the land is sitting on something he wants. Something he killed for once." I blinked. "Killed for?" Harlan corrected himself, voice tight. "Tried to." Mara made a small, broken noise. I felt the weight of everything closing in. "What's on the land?" I whispered. Harlan hesitated. Then he said the one thing I never expected. "Not what?" "Who?" My blood froze. And before I could ask anything else, the lamp behind him flickered once. The overhead lights snapped off. The building went pitch black. Harlan's breath hitched. Mara grabbed my arm. Outside in the hallway. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming closer. Harlan whispered, barely audible. "He found you." My heart stopped. The footsteps in the hallway weren't hurried. They weren't panicked. They weren't confused. They were measured. Confident. Like whoever was approaching already knew exactly where we were. The estate lawyer's office was dark except for the faint streetlight leaking through the blinds. My pulse pounded so violently I could feel in my teeth. Mara clutched my arm. Harlan didn't move. He just stared toward the door like a man who had been expecting this moment for 30 years. The footsteps stopped right outside. Then a shadow passed across the frosted glass. Tall. Still. Wrong. I whispered, "Back entrance." Harlan shook his head. He knows the layout. The doorknob turned. Slowly. Quietly. Not forcing. Testing. My throat tightened. Harlan gestured to the side hallway. "Go. Now." "What about you?" I whispered. A faint, grim smile. "I was part of this 30 years ago. It's past time I face it." He was stalling. Buying us seconds. Maybe minutes. I grabbed Mara's wrist, and we slid toward the side door, sticking low, moving quietly. Every muscle in my body felt like it was vibrating. The doorknob behind us kept turning, then stopped. A single knock. 3 taps. The same pattern from Mara's apartment. She froze. I pulled her down the hallway before the sound could root her in place. The emergency exit was at the end, dark, narrow, half blocked by a stack of old banker's boxes. I shoved them aside and pushed the crash bar. A cold gust of night air hit us. We ran. Not gracefully, not quietly, just ran, across the parking lot, heart hammering, every breath scraping in my throat. Behind us, inside the office, I heard something fall. A shout. A muffled struggle. Mara whimpered. "He's hurting Harlan." I didn't answer. If I did, I'd break. We jumped into my car. I turned the key. The engine didn't catch. A single second of dead silence. Panic spiked. I tried again. This time it roared to life. I slammed into reverse and tore out of the lot. Only when the office disappeared behind us did I breathe again. But the fear didn't fade. Not even close. We didn't speak for almost 3 miles. Then Mara finally whispered. "He said he wouldn't hurt Harlan if I cooperated. That wasn't your fault." She shook her head violently. "You don't understand. I already told them things. Things I shouldn't have. They wanted access to the estate files. The safe. They said you'd give us trouble. They said you'd ruin everything." My stomach twisted. "What did you tell them?" Her voice cracked, that things were hidden in the land deeds, and that your grandmother kept a copy in the safe. I gripped the wheel so tightly my hands ached. What kind of things? She wiped her face with a shaking hand. Clauses. Hidden clauses. Things your grandmother added after your mother died. Why hide them? Because your father was contesting ownership before he went to prison. He said she stole the land from him. That makes no sense, I snapped. He never owned it. He thought he did, she whispered. He thought he was entitled to it. And when she refused, he snapped. My blood ran cold. So the land wasn't just valuable. It was leverage. No, she said. It was a weapon. I frowned. A weapon for what? Her voice went quiet. To keep him away from you. The words hit me like a punch. Because suddenly everything made sense. The secrecy. The missing files. The safe. The quiet warnings my grandmother whispered on bad nights. Protect the land, and you protect the child. Lose the land, and you lose everything. I swallowed hard, my throat thick. What do the clauses actually say? She shook her head. I never saw them. I only know there are 3 of them, and that they were designed to trap him legally. Trap how? Her breath hitched. If the land ever transferred to him, a judge would reopen the case files. My pulse spiked. The case files about my mother. She nodded. The ones that prove what he did. A shiver crawled through me. So he wants the land to bury the evidence. A whisper. Yes. And he wants me. Her eyes filled again. To disappear. My stomach dropped. He thinks if you're gone, the land eventually reverts to the closest living heir by blood. The realization slammed into me. He wanted me gone, not out of rage, but because the estate laws made me the obstacle standing between him and the burial of his crimes. My entire existence was a legal inconvenience. I felt sick. I pulled into an abandoned strip mall parking lot, shut the engine, let the silence settle. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Mara said something that made every muscle in my body tighten. There's more. Something I didn't tell you. I turned slowly. She stared straight ahead, voice barely above a breath. The man who came to my apartment, that wasn't your father. A cold rush of fear rippled through me. Then who was he? I don't know his name, she whispered. But he's the one handling things now. The one who said your father owes him. The one who said the land belongs to him by right. My mind raced. Why would he claim that? She swallowed. Because of what's under it. My chest tightened. You mean minerals? Oil? Gas? She shook her head slowly. No. Then what? When she finally answered, the night seemed to still around us. Your grandmother buried evidence on that property. Not just documents. Something physical. Something she said would destroy him if the truth ever came out. My heartbeat thundered. What did she bury? But she didn't answer, because her phone buzzed. A single text. Unknown number. She turned the screen toward me with shaking hands. A photo. Harland, tied to a chair, blood on his face, and a message under it. Bring the clauses. Bring her. You have 6 hours? My breath left my body. They want me, I whispered. They've wanted you from the beginning. I stared at the text, my mind spinning, everything inside me roaring against what it meant. We're not going, I said, voice shaking. They'll kill him, Mara whispered. They'll kill us too. She didn't deny it. Instead, she whispered the one thing that broke me. Then we need to find the clauses before they do. My breath caught. You know where they are? She nodded. In the land records. The public ones? No, she whispered. The sealed ones. I frowned. Sealed? By who? By the judge on your mother's case. The same judge who sentenced your father. Why would a judge seal land deeds? She turned to me, eyes wide, terrified. Because your grandmother begged him to. Why? Because the clauses contain your mother's testimony. My heart stopped. Her last testimony, Mara whispered. I choked on breath. You mean her final statement? Before she died? Mara nodded. She recorded everything. Every detail of what happened the night she ran. Where she hid. What he threatened. What he wanted. My pulse hammered. Why would that be in a deed clause? Because she was afraid the file would be destroyed. But land deeds? They can't legally vanish. They can't be erased. Not without federal charges. So she hid her testimony in plain sight. I breathed. Exactly. I felt dizzy. And the man who wants the land wants to erase her voice forever. She didn't answer. She didn't need to, because I already knew. The land wasn't worth $4 million. It was worth the truth. And someone had been burying that truth for decades. I pulled out my phone. The blurry pictures I took of the documents in the safe stared back at me. Names half cut off. Dates obscured. Pages missing. But one line stood out. A line I had ignored in the panic. Recorded testimony stored under Title 9.3 B subsection 14. I whispered out loud. Mara gasped. That's the sealed section. Where? The county archive. When does it open? Her voice broke. It doesn't. It's been closed for renovations for weeks. My heart sank. Unless we get in another way, she whispered. Ow! She looked at me, terrified and trembling. Your grandmother left a key. My pulse spiked. Where? Her answer made my blood run cold. In the place she swore you'd never go back to. She didn't have to say it. I already knew. The estate house. My grandmother's bedroom. The same house where everything started. And where everything, apparently, was waiting to end. We drove in silence, dread crawling between us like a third passenger. Only when we pulled onto the long, dark driveway did I realize something was wrong. A car was already there. Black. Idle. Lights off. Mara grabbed my hand. He's here. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I didn't move. Because the porch light flicked on, and a silhouette stepped out. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Motionless. Watching us. Waiting. My father. Or someone worse. The silhouette on the porch didn't move. Not an inch. Not a shift of weight. Not a tilt of the head. Just stillness. A kind of stillness that doesn't happen by accident. A practiced stillness. A threatening one. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Beside me, Mara was shaking so hard the seat trembled with her. That's not him, she whispered. It can't be him. He wouldn't come here himself. Then who is it? She swallowed, voice barely audible. The handler. My stomach twisted. The man from your apartment? Worse, she choked. He's the one who controls everything now. I didn't understand, but I didn't have time to ask questions. The figure finally stepped forward into the weak porch light. He wasn't old, maybe mid-40s. Dark jacket, hands in pockets, face unbothered, almost calm, like he was greeting guests, not hunting us. His eyes found mine through the windshield. He smiled, just a small one, but it chilled me to the bone. I cut the engine. No, marajist. Don't get out. Please don't. But I knew one thing already. If we tried to reverse down this narrow one-lane driveway, he'd be behind us before the car reached the road. The only direction left was forward. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it was bruising my ribs. The man watched me approach, hands still calmly tucked in his coat. Not tense. Not ready to strike. He didn't need to be. People like him never ran. They simply waited for others to come closer. Good evening, he said when I reached the first step. His voice was smooth. Warm. Wrong. I stopped several feet away. What do you want? He tilted his head. The same thing your father wants. Closure. By killing me? He smiled again. No. Killing complicates things. Silence is easier. Compliance is easiest of all. I felt anger rising above the fear. You threatened Mara. I advised her, he corrected gently. She was making things difficult. Mara stepped out of the car then, legs trembling. The man barely glanced at her. You were told not to involve her, he said. She's involved whether you like it or not, I said sharply. He sighed like a disappointed teacher. I really hoped you would sign the documents quietly. $50,000 was generous, considering the circumstances. Considering the land is worth $4 million, his eyes flicked to mine. $4 million is pocket change compared to what's beneath it. I swallowed hard. Then tell me what's beneath it. He stepped down one step. Just one. Close enough that I felt danger radiating from him like heat. Your father's past, he said softly, and your mother's mistakes. I stiffened. Her mistake was surviving him. No, he said calmly. Her mistake was talking. My breath caught. He continued, "Your mother made a recording, one that could ruin far more people than your father. She didn't understand who was involved. She thought it was just him, but she was wrong." I felt my pulse spike. "What are you talking about?" He ignored the question. "Her testimony is hidden in the land deeds. Very clever of her. Those can't be erased without federal review." A pause. "Unless the land changes hands willingly." My stomach dropped. "That's why you need my signature." His smile widened slightly. "Now you understand." He reached into his coat. I flinched, but he didn't pull out a weapon. "Just an envelope." "For you," he said. I didn't take it. He sat on the porch railing instead. "Inside is what your father wants most. The location of the vault where the original recording is stored." My chest tightened. Vault. Not safe. Not file cabinet. A vault. "You're lying," I said. "Am I?" he asked calmly. "Your grandmother didn't tell you everything. She couldn't. She didn't know who to trust. But I do. What do you want in exchange?" His smile turned colder. "Your signature." I shook my head. "Even if I signed, you wouldn't let us go." He sighed. "I suppose you're right." Before I could react, he stepped forward, fast, too fast, and grabbed my wrist. His grip was iron. My breath caught. Pain shot up my arm. But the panic didn't start until he leaned in, his voice low, almost gentle. "You look just like your mother the night she begged us for mercy." My stomach flipped. "Your father wasn't the only one in that house," he whispered. "I was there too." Ice flooded my veins. My mother screams. Her injuries. The photos in the file. It wasn't just my father. He had been there. He leaned even closer, breath ghosting my ear. "She tried to hide you. But children are easy to find. They make noise. They cry. They give themselves away." My breath shook. "And you," he murmured. "You were so quiet, I thought you were dead." I jerked back, ripping my arm free, so hard the skin burned. He straightened his coat calmly, like nothing had happened. Mara sobbed behind me. I stared at him, rage and nausea battling in my chest. "You hurt her." "I ensured order," he corrected. "Your mother was impulsive. Emotional. Dangerous to our operation." Operation. The word hit me like a brick. "What operation?" He tapped the porch railing. "Open the envelope. It's time you saw who your father worked for." I didn't move. He shrugged and turned back toward the house. "I'll give you until sunrise. Bring me the clauses. Bring the land deed. And bring your consent to transfer ownership. And if I don't..." He paused in the doorway, then said the words that made my heart drop through the floor. "Then we'll finish what we started 26 years ago." He closed the door behind him. The night swallowed the sound. I didn't move. Not at first, because every part of me was shaking. Not from fear, not just from anger, from recognition. Because as he walked inside, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to think until now. He wasn't protecting my father's crimes. He was protecting his own. And my mother's recording? It didn't just expose domestic violence. It exposed a conspiracy, a network, an operation, people with power, people who wanted the land because the vault, whatever it contained, would unravel all of them if it ever saw daylight. I backed away from the porch. Mara grabbed my arm. "We need to go," she whispered. "No," I said. "We need to get inside." Her eyes widened in horror. "What? Are you insane?" "Look at him," I said quietly, staring at the door. "He didn't lock it. He didn't hide. He wants us to bring the deed to him. So he thinks we'll run. He thinks we're scared. We are scared." "I know," I whispered, "but I'm done running." She shook her head fiercely. "You can't go in there. He's dangerous." "I know," I said again, "but he already has Harland. He has the recording location. He has everything except one thing." "What?" "The clauses." Her breath stopped. "He doesn't know where they are," I said. "Only we do." Mara stared at me with trembling lips. "He'll kill you." "Then why didn't he just do it now?" She didn't have an answer. I took a slow breath. "We're going inside. Not to confront him. To search the house." "For what?" "For the key. The one that unlocks the sealed archive. The key my grandmother hid." Mara wiped her face. Her voice cracked. "What if he catches us?" I swallowed hard. "Then we run. And we never stop." But I didn't say the second part out loud. If he catches us, we die. I stepped toward the porch. But just before I reached the door, my phone buzzed. A new text. Unknown number. Again. This time, not a threat. A video. I opened it. My breath caught. It was my grandmother, in her hospital bed, breathing through tubes, looking at the camera with eyes too tired for secrets. She whispered, "If she's watching this, tell her the truth wasn't hidden under the land. It was buried inside it." The video cut off. Mara gasped. "What does that mean?" I looked at the ground beneath my feet. The earth, the soil, the property itself. And suddenly I understood. The vault wasn't a building. The vault was the land. And whatever my grandmother hid, it wasn't evidence on paper. It was something physical, something someone killed for, and would kill again to recover. My pulse hammered. "We need a shovel," I whispered, because the key to the archive wasn't the only thing my grandmother hid. She hid the truth, and she buried it deep. I didn't realize how cold the night had gotten until we stepped around the side of the house, and the wind cut straight through my clothes. The trees swayed hard enough that their branches scraped against the siding, an eerie whispering sound that made every nerve in my body tense. Mara stayed close behind me, clutching her arms, eyes darting toward every shadow. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered. "No, not even close." But I nodded anyway. "We need answers," I said. "Everything starts here." The estate had always felt haunted to me, not by ghosts, but by memories, by the things my grandmother never talked about, by the silence she wrapped around my childhood like armor. Now I understood why. The air felt thick with something unspoken, something waiting. We reached the old tool shed first. The padlock was rusted, hanging crookedly on a hinge that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. I pushed it. It snapped off with almost no resistance. My heart hammered. Either my grandmother left it unlocked for me, or someone else had been here recently. Inside, the shed smelled like wet dirt and old wood. The moonlight through the warped slats fell in crooked silver lines on the tools hanging against the wall. I grabbed 2 shovels. Mara hesitated, staring at them like they were loaded weapons. "This feels wrong," she whispered. "I know. What if we're digging up something we're not ready for?" I paused, then said the truth. "We're already in it. Whatever we find, we need to know." She didn't argue. We headed toward the back acreage, where the old garden used to be. My grandmother had always forbidden us from playing there. I used to think it was because of snakes or unstable ground. Now I knew better. We reached the small clearing where the trees opened into a patch of bare earth. Even in the dark, the soil looked different, darker, like it had been turned recently. Mara stepped back. "You see that, right?" she whispered. "Edo." And that terrified me even more. I planted my shovel and began to dig. The first layer of dirt was soft, easy to move. Too easy, like someone had loosened it only days before. My throat tightened. "Mara, someone's already been digging here." She made a small choking sound. "Why? For what?" I didn't know. I just kept digging, my breath coming in faster bursts, the shovel slicing through the earth. 6 inches down, then 10, then 12. My shovel hit something solid. I staggered. "What was that?" Mara whispered. I dropped to my knees and brushed the dirt away with my hands. A corner of metal appeared. Cold. Copper. Dull with age. I kept clearing it until the full shape emerged. A box. A heavy, rectangular strongbox, the kind used in the 70s and 80s to store valuables. The latches were rusted, the sides worn, but the top had something carved into it. A single initial. C. For Crowley. For my grandmother. My chest tightened so sharply it hurt. "She buried this," I whispered. "She put it here." Mara crouched beside me, breath shaking. "Open it." I pulled on the latch. It didn't budge. I dug my nails under it, then used the shovel to wedge it open. It snapped with a sharp crack. Inside wasn't what I expected. Not documents. Not money. Not keys. A cassette tape. Old. Black plastic. Dust smudged around the edges. Side A. 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 43 seconds. Side B. 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 5 seconds. Handwritten. Shaky script. My grandmother's. My breath caught. What is that? Mara whispered. A recording. Of what? I didn't answer. I already knew. My mother's voice. Her last testimony. Her warning. Her truth. My hands trembled as I lifted it from the box, feeling its weight, heavier than I expected, like it carried something dark inside it. And beneath it, a photograph. I froze, because the second I saw the picture, everything inside me stopped. It was taken in this exact clearing, nearly 30 years ago, at night. My mother, standing barefoot in the dirt, clutching me, an infant tight to her chest. Her hair was wild, her face bruised, her mouth open mid-cry. Next to her stood a man, my father. You could see the rage in him even in that grainy image. His hand wrapped around her arm, his body twisted in movement, as if he'd been caught mid-strike. Behind them, blurred, another shadow, a third person watching. Tall, still, the same posture as the man on the porch. The handler. I felt the ground tilt under me. This wasn't a domestic dispute. This wasn't a one-man act of violence. This was organized, coordinated. A group. Someone took that picture. Someone buried it. Someone wanted this moment erased forever. Before I could speak, Mara gasped. Look, she pointed deeper into the box. There was something else inside, thin, folded, yellow with age. A map, hand-drawn, faded, showing the estate layout, with a red X marked near the old barn ruins. I unfolded it. Under the X, one word. Vault. My breath shook. So the handler hadn't lied. There was a vault buried on the property. But the recording in my hand wasn't the only one. This tape was a copy. The original was in the vault. The evidence my mother died trying to protect. The reason they wanted the land back. The reason they wanted me dead. The night air suddenly shifted, like a pressure change before a storm. A twig snapped somewhere behind us. Mara stiffened. You heard that. Stay close. I whispered. Then another sound. Crunch. Slow, deliberate footsteps. My pulse spiked. I turned. A beam of light hit us dead in the face. A flashlight, held by someone emerging from the tree line. A man, alone, wearing a sheriff's jacket. I blinked, disoriented. Sheriff Nolan? He lowered the light slightly, enough for me to see his features. Lines in his face. A gray beard. Eyes that had seen too much. He wasn't the handler. He wasn't working with them. I hoped. What are you doing out here? He asked, voice tight, cautious. I swallowed hard. We found something. I held up the cassette. His expression changed instantly, like I'd hit him with a physical blow. He stepped closer. Where did you get that? My grandmother buried it. His jaw tightened. Of course she did. The way he said it made every hair on my arms rise. You know what this is? I asked. He held my gaze for a long moment. Then, everyone who was there that night knows what that is. My chest tightened. Were you there? A beat. A long, terrible beat. He allowed a slow breath. I was the one who found your mother. My voice cracked. Alive. He closed his eyes briefly. Just barely. My knees nearly gave out. What did she say? I whispered. Please. His face hardened. Not with anger, but with regret so deep it looked like it had carved itself into his bones. She said your father wasn't alone, that someone else gave the order. The order. It hit me like ice water. My mother hadn't been attacked because she tried to leave. She'd been silenced because she heard something she wasn't supposed to. What did she hear? I asked. He glanced back toward the dark tree line. I can't say it out loud. Not here. Then where? He stepped forward. I'll take you. But we need to leave now. Before he gets here. Mara grabbed my arm. Who's he? The sheriff swallowed hard. The man your grandmother warned you about. My throat tightened. The handler? No, Nolan said. Worse. My pulse spiked. Worse how? He lowered his voice, so quietly the wind almost swallowed it. He's the one who gave the order in the first place. My heart stopped. Everything inside me froze. You mean? Yes, Nolan said. The man your mother named on her deathbed. The man she said orchestrated everything. The man above the handler. The man above my father. I felt sick. Who is he? Nolan looked at me with eyes filled with something I didn't understand at first. something like sorrow. "You're not going to believe me," he whispered. "And when you do, you'll wish you never asked." Thunder rumbled in the distance. The wind howled through the trees. Something shifted in the darkness behind him. A shadow, not shaped like a tree, not shaped like an animal. Something human. Nolan's eyes widened. "Get down!" A gunshot shattered the night. The cassette flew from my hand. The box toppled. Mara screamed. I hit the ground hard enough to knock the breath from my lungs. Nolan grabbed my jacket and hauled me backward. "Run," he shouted. "Get to the car." Another shot. Closer. I didn't look back. Mara and I sprinted across the clearing, stumbling, slipping on the uneven ground. My heart hammered so loudly I couldn't hear anything else. Not the footsteps behind us, not the wind, not Mara's choked sobs. Only when we reached the driveway did I realize. The shooter wasn't aiming at us. He was aiming at the cassette, at the evidence, at the truth. We dove into the car. I jammed the keys into the ignition. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. As we sped down the driveway, gravel spraying behind us, I looked back one last time. Nolan stumbled out of the trees, clutching his shoulder. Behind him, a man stepped into view. Not the handler. Someone taller, broader, older, his face half hidden in shadow. But I recognized the shape of him, the way he stood, the way he watched, like he owned everything he surveyed. Nolan's voice echoed in my mind. The one who gave the order. My father? Or someone far, far worse? We turned onto the main road, tires screeching. Mara grabbed my hand. "Who was that?" she whispered. I didn't answer, because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The danger wasn't the handler, or even my father. It was the man above them both. The man my mother had tried to expose. And now he knew exactly where I was. We didn't stop driving until the estate was miles behind us, and the tree line had thinned into long stretches of empty road. My hands were still gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my fingers felt numb. Mara kept glancing out the back window, like she expected headlights to appear at any second. They didn't, but that didn't make us safe. Not even close. I pulled into an empty church parking lot. Bright lights, security cameras, open space. A place where shadows had nowhere to hide. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Mara finally broke the silence. "Who was that man in the trees?" I swallowed hard. "Not the handler." She nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. "I know. He felt different." Different wasn't the right word. He felt final. Like the kind of danger you only see once because you don't get a second chance. My pulse was still hammering when I reached down for the cassette, and my stomach dropped. It wasn't in my pocket. I tore through the passenger seat, then the floor, then under the dashboard. Nothing. Mara's face went pale. "Where is it?" Panic clawed at my throat. "It must have fallen when Nolan pushed us into the dirt." "So they have it?" "No," I said, breath shaking. "No, they were shooting at it. They didn't retrieve it. They wanted to destroy it. Then someone else." She didn't finish because my phone suddenly buzzed. A text. Unknown number. My chest tightened. I opened it. A video file waited. I tapped it. The screen filled with shaky footage. The ground. Grass. Flashlight beams. Heavy breathing. Then a gloved hand picking up something from the dirt. The cassette. My heart stopped. The camera panned up slowly, revealing a face. Sheriff Nolan. Alive. Bleeding. But alive. He stared into the camera, eyes full of urgency. "I have it," he rasped. "And I know where she kept the second copy. You need to come now." The screen cut to black. Another message followed. "County maintenance yard. Building 3. Come alone." My throat tightened. "This feels wrong," Mara whispered. "He's hurt. He wouldn't tell you to come alone." I watched the video again, and that's when I saw it. Not in Nolan's face. In the background. A shadow. Barely visible. Tall. Still. Watching. Not moving. Not helping him. Just there. Like a threat wrapped in darkness. "This is a trap?" I whispered. Mara's breath hitched. "Then we're not going." But my mind spun, fast, desperate. Nolan wasn't the type to betray anyone. He saved my mother. He took a bullet for us tonight. But when someone has a gun to their head, loyalty becomes leverage. We have to see him, I said quietly. No. Mara grabbed my arm. You can't walk into that alone. I won't be alone, I said. You'll stay outside. Call for help if anything happens. There is no help, she whispered. Not with these people. She wasn't wrong, but someone had to try. I pulled onto the road again. The maintenance yard sat at the edge of town, half abandoned, half functional, with a long row of steel warehouses that looked like they'd collapse if someone leaned on them too hard. Only one building had a light on. Building 3. I parked behind a dumpster and cut the engine. Mara grabbed my sleeve. Please don't go in. I touched her hand. I'll scream if something feels wrong, or I'll run. But if that recording is still intact. Her voice cracked. It could save us. Exactly. I stepped out, legs trembling, and approached the building. The metal door was slightly open. A sliver of yellow light spilled through the crack. I pushed it wider. The smell of oil and old dust hit me fast. Heavy. Suffocating. Inside, the room was empty except for an old workbench and a single swinging lamp overhead. Nolan, my voice echoed. Nothing. I took one step forward. Another. Then I saw him. Sheriff Nolan sat slumped in a metal chair, jacket soaked with blood, head hanging. I sprinted toward him. Nolan. He lifted his head slowly, eyes half open. You came, he whispered. What happened? Who shot you? Did they take the tape? He shook his head weakly. I hid it. I hid it before they could. My heart leapt. Where? He opened his mouth to speak, but suddenly his eyes flicked upward, past my shoulder. Fear flooded his face. Move, he choked. Move. A hand clamped over my mouth. Another pinned my arms behind me. I screamed into the palm, kicking, twisting, fighting. A low voice whispered in my ear. Quiet. The handler. My blood ran cold. He dragged me backward as Nolan struggled to stand. Let her go. Nolan growled, voice cracking with pain. The handler chuckled. Still playing hero? You should know by now how this ends. He pushed me into the chair opposite Nolan. The metal scraped loudly across the concrete. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I could only hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The handler stepped into the light. Where's the tape? He asked Nolan. Nolan spat blood on the floor. Go to hell. The handler sighed and rubbed his jaw like a disappointed parent. I was hoping you'd make this easy. He pulled something from his pocket. Another cassette. My chest tightened. What is that? I whispered. He smiled. Your father's tape. What does that mean? It means, he said calmly, that I've had his confession for years. Confession. Confession. The word struck like lightning. You knew everything he did. I whispered. And you still helped him? I didn't help him, the handler said. He helped me. He stepped closer, eyes dark. Your father was the muscle, but I was the brain. My stomach twisted. You orchestrated the attack. I orchestrated everything, he said. Nolan growled. You're not going to walk out of here with this. The handler ignored him and crouched beside me. Do you know why your mother died? He whispered. I shut my eyes. Stop. Do you want to know? No. You need to know, he murmured. His breath was ice against my cheek. She didn't die because of what your father did. She died because she listened to something she shouldn't have. I shook my head violently. Stop. She heard the recording, he said. The one hidden in the vault. The recording of our meeting. Meeting. My pulse spiked. I whispered. He nodded. Your father. The sheriff. Myself. And one other. I stared at Nolan, betrayed and broken. He didn't deny it. His eyes filled with shame. I didn't know he'd go after her, Nolan whispered. I didn't know he'd hurt her like that. But you didn't stop it, the handler said. None of you did. I felt sick. The handler leaned closer. She wasn't supposed to record us. But she did. She buried it. And your grandmother found it. He smiled. And that changed everything. I whispered, barely audible. Who was the fourth man? The handler's smile faded. We'll get to that. He turned back to Nolan. Where is the tape? Nolan lifted his chin. Burn in hell. The handler sighed, drew a gun from his coat, and aimed it at Nolan's leg. No. I screamed. Stop. A single muffled thud. Nolan collapsed forward with a cry of pain. I jerked against the chair so violently it scraped across the floor. The handler leaned over him. You have 30 seconds to start talking. Nolan looked at me. Not at the handler. At me. Listen, he breathed. He doesn't know. He doesn't know about the document. The handler froze. What document? My blood turned to ice. Nolan gasped through the pain. The one your mother signed the night she ran. The handler stiffened. What document? Nolan's voice shook. The one that names the fourth man. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Deadly. The handler straightened. I'm done playing. He stepped toward me. Gun raised. This ends now. The door behind him blew open. Mara. Screaming. Swinging a metal pipe. It cracked against the back of his skull. The handler stumbled, dropped to one knee, then turned toward her, eyes burning with hate. Run! Nolan shouted. I kicked my chair backward, forcing it to tip. The crash freed my arms. Mara grabbed my hand. We bolted. Behind us, the handler roared. You can't hide the truth. He's protected. We sprinted through the lot, lungs burning, feet slipping on gravel. Gunshots exploded behind us. We didn't look back. Not once. We dove into the car, slammed the doors, and tore out of the yard. Only when we hit the highway did Mara finally choke out. What was he talking about? Who's the fourth man? I swallowed hard. Nolan's words replayed in my mind. Your mother signed a document. It names the fourth man. I reached into my pocket. One thing remained. One thing the handler hadn't seen. The folded corner of paper I'd found under the strongbox, stuck to the bottom with old tape. I pulled it out. Mara stared. What is that? I unfolded it slowly. 3 signatures cover the top. My mother's. My grandmother's. And one more, scribbled in expensive ink. My vision blurred. No, you whispered. No, this is impossible. At the bottom of the page, the fourth man's name. Someone with power. Someone with money. Someone who could make evidence disappear. Someone who could get a violent criminal released early. Mara grabbed my arm. Who is it? I looked at her, voice cracking. It's someone we both know. She swallowed. Say it. I whispered the name. Mara's eyes widened with horror. He's family. My breath shook. He's more than family, I said. He's the executor of the estate. I used to think there was a limit to how much a person could be shocked by their own family. I was wrong. Finding out the executor of the estate, my own Uncle Robert, was the fourth man in my mother's testimony didn't just break something inside me. It shattered everything I thought I knew about blood, loyalty, and what it meant to belong to a family. He wasn't just involved. He orchestrated the cleanup, signed documents, helped cover medical records, paid off someone inside the courthouse. And now, he was the one who would inherit everything if I disappeared. The realization hit me over and over like waves hitting rocks. Violent, relentless, impossible to stop. Mara sat beside me in the car, pale and shaking. He can't be involved, she whispered. He raised me. He tucked me in at night. He took us for ice cream when Grandma was in the hospital. And he also sat in a room with my father and the handler while they talked about how to deal with my mother. I said quietly. He signed her death warrant with his silence. Mara burst into tears. It wasn't fair. Not to her. Not to any of us. But the truth doesn't care about fair. The truth only cares about being found. I pulled into a dark turnout off the main highway and killed the engine. The world outside felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. What do we do now? She whispered. We find a vault, I said. We find the original recording. And then we take everything to someone who can protect it. Oh, she asked, almost desperate. The police? The sheriff's department is compromised. The courthouse is compromised. Robert is tied to half the county. Who can we trust? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. All I knew was we couldn't go back to the estate until we had a plan. A real plan. I pulled my grandmother's map from my bag, the hand-drawn one with the red X. That X wasn't just a mark. It was a warning, a plea, a last breadcrumb she'd left for the moment she feared most. The moment I was living right now. But the map wasn't enough on its own. The vault wouldn't open without the key, and the key was still hidden somewhere inside the estate house. The same house where the handler, and possibly my uncle, were waiting for us. My hands shook as I traced the faded ink lines. It's time, I whispered. To go back. Mara asked. To finish this. Her voice cracked. They'll kill us. They'll try. I folded the map, took a deep breath, and spoke the truth I'd been trying not to say aloud. We're not running anymore. We reached the estate just after 1:40 a.m. The moon was high, the air electric, the house lit from inside like someone was waiting. Mara grabbed my sleeve as I stepped out of the car. Don't go in blind, she whispered. Please. I'm not. I reached under the seat and pulled out the wrench I'd kept there since the last time I had car trouble. Not a weapon, but better than empty hands. We moved slowly, staying close to the tree line, avoiding the windows where light glowed through old curtains. Every crunch of gravel beneath our shoes felt too loud. Every whisper of wind through the pine needles felt like footsteps. When we reached the back door, it was slightly open. Not broken, not forced, inviting. A trap, but we stepped inside anyway. The house smelled like dust and cedar, the way it always had, but now something else lingered beneath it. Something metallic, sharp, like the aftermath of blood. The living room was empty, the kitchen silent, but the hallway light was on. I motioned for Mara to stay behind me. We crept forward until we reached the stairs, and that's when I heard it. A soft, strained breath from the top landing. A woman's breath. My heart lurched. Someone was there. Slowly, we climbed the stairs. The first landing creaked under my weight and my breath hitched, but no one came rushing toward us. No voice called out. We reached the top, and then we saw her, sitting on the floor, legs outstretched, hands shaking violently. The executor's wife. My Aunt Linda. I hadn't seen her in months, not since my grandmother's funeral. Her eyes were wild, rimmed red, her hair disheveled in a way I'd never seen. She looked like someone who'd been crying for hours. When she saw me, her breath hitched in relief and terror all at once. Oh, thank God, she whispered. You came. Mara rushed to her. Aunt Linda? What happened? Where's Uncle Robert? Her eyes darted down the hallway. He's not who you think he is, she whispered. We know, I said. Her face crumpled. I tried to stop him. Her voice shook. I tried. I swear I did. Where is he now? I asked. Her trembling finger lifted and pointed toward my grandmother's bedroom. A wave of dread washed through me. Is he inside? She shook her head weakly. No, he's gone. He ran. Someone came for him. My breath vanished. Who? I whispered. The man in the shadows, she said, voice cracking. The one your mother was always afraid of. My stomach clenched. The handler? Mara asked. No, Linda choked. The other one. The one above him. My hands went ice cold. The man above the handler. The one no one hinted at. The one my mother named. The true mastermind. Linda reached for my hand with trembling fingers. I saw the documents, she whispered. I saw what they made him sign, what they made him bury. Your grandmother tried to protect you, but they threatened us. They threatened our children. You don't know what he's capable of. Who? I demanded. Who is he? But before she could answer, something shifted down the hallway. A soft step, a breath, then a voice. Calm, smooth, familiar. You're already too late. Ispoon. The handler stood in the doorway of my grandmother's room. But he wasn't alone. A second figure stepped into the light behind him, and my entire body went rigid, because I knew that face. I'd grown up around it, trusted it, looked up to it. He stepped forward, expression unreadable, hands clasped calmly behind his back. Uncle Robert's older brother, a man who'd never once raised his voice, never once shown anger, never once hinted at the monster hiding beneath his quiet demeanor. Judge Ellis Crowley, the man who had handled my mother's case, the man who had sealed the deeds, the man who had controlled the courthouse for decades, and the man who, according to the testimony, gave the original order the night my mother was attacked. My heartbeat roared in my ears. No, Mara Guisperth. No, it can't be him. He smiled gently. I'm afraid it always was. My knees threatened to buckle. You lied to everyone, I whispered. I protected our family, he said. From scandal, from shame, from the consequences your mother tried to unleash. She was trying to survive, I snapped. She was trying to destroy us, he corrected calmly. You were never supposed to hear her voice. The handler stepped forward. But you will. Tonight. Mara clutched my arm. What does he mean? Judge Ellis's eyes flicked to me. We didn't come to kill you, he said softly. Not yet. First, you need to understand exactly why your mother had to be silenced. I felt sick. Where's the tape? I demanded. His smile widened just enough to make my skin crawl. Which one? A chill slid down my spine. You think your grandmother buried just one copy? He asked. She recorded everything twice. Once for legal protection, and once for you. He motioned to the handler, and the handler pulled something from his coat pocket. A cassette. Old. Labeled. My mother's handwriting. The handler pressed it against his palm and whispered, You want the truth? Then listen. My breath shook. What's on it? He grinned. Her last words. In the name of the man, she begged God not to let anywhere near you. The judge stepped forward. I warned her, he said softly. I told her if the recording ever resurfaced, I'd finish what she started. My voice cracked. You mean kill us? I mean, he said gently, restore order. Mara whimpered. What do you want from us? He lifted the cassette. This. I stared. What do you mean? I want you to destroy it, he said. My pulse froze. If you burn this, he continued, I'll let you walk away. Both of you. And the estate will remain untouched. No more threats. No more lies. No more violence. And if I don't, his smile disappeared. Then we dig a second grave. Silence dropped between us like a blade. I stared at the cassette in his hand. And then I saw it. A detail, so small it almost slipped past me. The handwriting. It wasn't my mother's. It was my grandmother's. She had labeled it herself. Which meant this wasn't the testimony. This was something else. Something the judge wanted gone. Something he feared. Something he hoped I wouldn't recognize. My heartbeat steadied. My fear shifted into clarity. I looked him dead in the eyes and whispered, That's not the original tape. His face twitched just once. The handler's jaw tightened. Mara inhaled sharply. My aunt covered her mouth. And in that split second of hesitation, that tiny fracture in the judge's mask, I knew we still had leverage. The original recording wasn't in his hand. The vault still held the truth, and he didn't know where it was. Pain flashed in his eyes, not physical pain, but something worse. Loss of control. Then his voice dropped into a whisper colder than the night air outside. Then we'll drag the truth out of you. He stepped closer. The handler reached for me, and in that moment, quick as lightning, I grabbed the wrench from my waistband and swung it hard into the judge's wrist. He screamed. The cassette flew across the hallway. Mara lunged for it. The handler lunged for her, and everything exploded into chaos. The hallway erupted into chaos so quickly that for a moment, none of us understood who was hitting who was reaching for what, or where the cassette had landed. All I knew was this. If the handler got to Mara before she reached that tape, everything, my mother's truth, my grandmother's warnings, every awful question that had driven me this far, would disappear forever. The judge clutched his wrist, staggering backward, shouting for the handler to stop us. His usually calm voice cracked in a way I'd never heard. It sounded like fear, the first real fear I'd ever seen from him. And it was because of one tiny object flying through the air, a single cassette he couldn't afford for us to hear. Mara dove across the floor, fingers outstretched. The handler lunged. I didn't think. I didn't weigh the risk. I didn't consider consequences. I charged him. He slammed into me hard enough that my back smacked the wall, knocking the breath out of my lungs. His hand clamped around my throat. His grip was cold, clinical, almost gentle, as if he'd done this enough times that he didn't need force to kill. He squeezed. My vision flashed white. You should have stayed quiet, he whispered, breath warm against my ear. Just like your mother should have. Rage lit every nerve in my body. I drove my knee into his ribs. He grunted, but didn't let go. Stars burst behind my eyes. Then, a metallic crack. He froze. Another. Louder. His grip loosened. He staggered sideways, clutching his shoulder. Behind him stood Linda, my aunt, shaking violently, holding a brass candlestick like it weighed 50 pounds. Her voice trembled. "Don't touch her." He whirled toward her. Mara screamed. I grabbed the handler's coat and yanked with every ounce of strength I had, dragging him away from her before he could strike. He stumbled. Mara slid across the floor and snatched up the cassette, but the judge moved faster than any man his age had a right to. He lunged for her, snatching her wrist so hard she cried out in pain. "Give it to me," he hissed. "No," she screamed, twisting. He squeezed harder, face twisted with fury. I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not calculation, not coldness, but something far more dangerous. Desperation. Real, choking desperation. He wasn't fighting for greed. He wasn't fighting for pride. He was fighting for survival. That tape held something that could destroy him fully, finally, with no chance of redemption. "Let her go," I shouted, running toward them. The handler grabbed my ankle, dragging me to the floor. I kicked free. Mara's scream echoed down the hall. Linda ran at the judge again, but he shoved her aside. She hit the wall with a sickening thud and sank to the floor, dazed. Mara's fingers loosened. The cassette slipped, fell, slid across the floor, straight toward my grandmother's bedroom. I dove for it. The judge lunged at the same time. We collided in the doorway. I hit the floor hard. He landed beside me, scrambling for the tape. My fingers closed around it first. His hand clamped over mine. The pressure made my bones ache. "It's over," he growled. "Give it to me." I lifted my gaze to meet his. And for the first time since all of this began, I didn't feel afraid. I felt clarity. "You don't get to bury her twice," I whispered. Before he could react, I rolled onto my back and kicked him square in the chest. He flew backward, crashing into my grandmother's vanity. The handler rushed toward me. I bolted to my feet and ran. Down the hallway, down the stairs, into the kitchen. The judge shouted behind me, "Stop her!" I didn't stop. I sprinted into the mudroom, slamming the door shut just as the handler barreled into it from the other side. The impact shook the frame, knocking dust from the old hinges. He hit again, and again. The wood groaned. It wouldn't hold long. My hand trembled as I shoved the old storage cabinet aside, revealing the small hatch in the wall. Painted over, cracked, nearly invisible unless you knew what you were looking for. My grandmother had shown it to me once when I was 8 years old. She told me never to use it, never to open it, which meant, of course, that it mattered. I pried the hatch open. Behind it was the old laundry chute. It hadn't been used in decades. The bottom led to the cellar crawl space. And the cellar, according to the map, led straight toward the barn foundation, the location of the vault. This was my only chance. The handler threw his full weight into the mudroom door. The frame cracked. I clutched the cassette to my chest, and I jumped into the chute. The fall was shorter than I remembered. My knees buckled as I hit the cellar dirt floor, dust exploding around me. The chute above rattled as the handler began climbing in after me. I scrambled forward on my hands and knees, crawling through the tight darkness until I found the rotted boards marking the cellar exit. I shoved them aside and burst into the night air. I ran across the yard, feet barely touching the ground, lungs burning, body trembling with adrenaline. Behind me, the handler was shouting. Lights flicked on inside the house. And then, the judge's voice boomed. "She's heading for the vault. Stop her!" My legs screamed for me to stop, but I pushed harder. I reached the old barn foundation, just a cement outline now, cracked and swallowed by weeds. The red X from the map etched itself into my mind. I fell to my knees and pushed aside the rotting boards covering the center. Underneath was a sheet of metal. A hatch. Real. Not mythical. Not imagined. Real. I dug my fingers into the rusted handle and pulled. It didn't budge. I yanked again. Still nothing. Panic surged up my throat. Footsteps thundered behind me. I turned. The handler burst from the tree line, gun drawn. I grabbed a brick from the ground and slammed it against the hatch handle. Once. Twice. On the third strike, the rusted metal snapped. The hatch popped open. The handler raised the gun. I dropped into the darkness. His shot echoed like thunder above me. The fall knocked the breath from my lungs. I lay on the cold earth, stunned, staring up at the rectangle of gray sky. Then, the handler's silhouette appeared over the hatch. I scrambled backward into the vault's shadows. He jumped down after me. The vault wasn't a room. It was a tunnel. Long, narrow, silent. At the end of it, barely visible, was a metal door with a combination lock. My grandmother's handwriting was scrawled on the wall beside it. If you found this, you already know the truth. Don't stop. My throat tightened. The handler stepped into the tunnel. You can't hide, he growled. I reached for the lock. I didn't know the code, but my grandmother wasn't careless. I looked closer. 4 faint shapes beneath the dial. Symbols, not numbers. The pattern on her wedding ring. I spun the dial. The lock clicked open. The handler lunged. I threw myself backward into the room beyond and slammed the door shut, locking it from the inside. He pounded on it. The whole door shook, but it held. Inside the vault, there was no treasure, no money, just a single metal table, a single dusty recorder, and a single cassette placed dead center, labeled in my mother's handwriting. If anything happens to me, play this. My breath trembled as I slid the cassette, the real one, into the recorder. The pounding on the door grew louder. The handler shouted for me to stop. I didn't. The tape clicked. Static hissed. Then, her voice. My mother's voice. Ellis Crowley ordered it. I froze. He told your father, make it look like an accident. He said he'd clean the paperwork. He said no one would believe a woman over a judge. The handler kicked the door hard enough to dent the metal. He threatened my mother. He threatened me. He said if I spoke, he'd bury me under the estate just like he buried the others. The recorder crackled, and then she whispered something I wasn't ready to hear. He's coming for our daughter. Please, whoever hears this, protect her. Don't let him have her. The door behind me buckled. My heart stopped. My mother hadn't been recording a murder. She'd been recording a warning. About me. The judge didn't just want the inheritance. He wanted control. He wanted legacy. And he wanted me because he believed I belonged to him. Because he believed. No. No, God, no. The tape continued. Ellis told your father the truth after I found out. He told him she wasn't ours. That she was his. That no one would believe me if I tried to tell. My vision blurred. The baby is mine, my mother whispered. Not his. Not theirs. Mine. The recorder clicked off. Silence swallowed the room. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't move. The judge wanted me not because of inheritance, but because he believed I was his biological child, and he wanted to erase every record of my mother telling the truth. The door burst inward. The handler stood in the doorway, gun raised, but he froze, because behind him, Sheriff Nolan staggered into view, bleeding, barely standing, but alive. He grabbed the handler from behind and dragged him backward into the tunnel. Gunshots exploded in the darkness. Shouts. A scream. Then, silence. I crawled to the doorway just as Nolan collapsed into the vault, barely conscious. It's done, he whispered. He won't hurt you again. I caught him before he hit the floor. Why? I asked, voice cracking. Why me now? He looked up at me with eyes full of regret. Because I should have listened to your mother, he whispered. I won't fail her twice. Footsteps thundered above us. Mara, Linda, reinforcements. The nightmare was ending. But the truth wasn't over. Not yet. Because the judge, my supposed father, was still somewhere on the grounds. Still running. Still dangerous. Still alive. Nolan reached in his coat with trembling fingers. Your grandmother left one last thing, he whispered. Upstairs. In the desk. A DNA report. My breath hitched. A DNA report. He squeezed my hand. It proves he isn't your father. I sobbed. Your mother was telling the truth, he whispered. You were never his. You were never part of him. You're free. The handler was dead. The judge was exposed. The tape was real. And for the first time since the night, everything shattered. I felt the weight lift. Not all of it, but enough to stand. Enough to breathe. Enough to finally walk toward something new. Outside, the sun was rising, staining the sky gold, washing the estate in early light. Mara took my hand. Linda whispered my mother's name like a prayer. And I looked at the house that had held every secret, every lie, every wound. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel anger. I felt something else. Something I never expected to feel again. A beginning. The end.